Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1979. Hello, I'm your host. I'm Dr. Maury Reese. I'm a former high school teacher, former college teacher, former naval instructor. I spent 30 years with Apple Computer, and now for a hobby, I make YouTubes. Jimmy Carter was president in 1979. I was 34 years old working in Washington, D.C. for Control Data Corporation. I worked as a Control Data Corporation development executive, and I worked with the following government agencies: the White House, the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives, the Department of Defense, the CIA, the Department of Labor, FEMA, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, the U.S. Postal Service, the National Association of Security Dealers, the Smithsonian Institution, and the National Archives. That was a very exciting time in my life. On January 1st, the United States and the People's Republic of China established full diplomatic relations. On January 4th, the state of Ohio agrees to pay $675,000 to the families of those who were dead or injured from the Kent State shooting. On January 19th, former U.S. Attorney General John N. Mitchell is released on parole after serving 19 months at a federal prison in Alabama. This was President Nixon's Attorney General. Can you imagine? On January 29th, Brenda Ann Spencer opens fire at a school in San Diego, California, killing 2 faculty members and wounding 8 students. She's still in prison. She will go up for parole in the year 2028. On February 13th, an intense windstorm strikes western Washington, and it sinks a half-mile-long section of the Hood Canal Bridge. On February 14th in Kabul, Muslim extremists kidnapped the American ambassador to Afghanistan, Adolph Dubs, who was later killed during a gun battle between his kidnappers and police. On February 20th, This Old House premieres on PBS TV. I love this show. Watched it every Saturday morning for years. Learned a lot. On March 4th, the U.S. Voyager 1 space probe photos revealed Jupiter's rings. On March 26th, in a ceremony at the White House, President Anwar Sadat of Egypt and Prime Minister Menachem Begin of Israel signed the Egyptian-Israeli Peace Treaty. On March 29th, America's most serious nuclear power plant accident at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. I was a chief nuclear reactor officer in the Navy, so let me tell you a little bit about what happened. A relief valve stuck open, and it lowered the cooling water around the nuclear reactors. Unfortunately, the instrumentation didn't show it correctly, and the operators did not follow correct procedures because their instruments were wrong. And so they uncovered part of the nuclear core, and it melted. On April 1st, Nickelodeon debuts on cable television, playing children's television shows 24 hours a day. On April 2nd, Major League Baseball umpires go on strike, forcing replacements from the minor leagues, college, and high schools to be used for the first 7 weeks of the season. The union umpires returned to work on May 18th. So they had to go all the way down to high schools to find umpires. On April 10th, a tornado hits Wichita Falls, Texas, and it kills 42 people. Look at the size of this thing. It was almost a half a mile in diameter. On a lighter note, on April 20th, President Jimmy Carter is attacked by a swamp rabbit. I'm not making this up. While fishing in his hometown of Plains, Georgia. Here's the rabbit, and it swam over to the president, and he had to swat at it and beat it off. This was a big news story at the time. On May 9th, a Unabomber bomb injures a Northwestern University graduate student, John Harris. This unknown bomber had been sending these bombs all over the United States. It started in 1978, and they didn't catch him until 1993. On May 21st, in San Francisco, gay people riot after hearing the verdict for Dan White, assassin of Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harry Milk. This Dan White got off from first-degree murder because he basically pleaded insanity, and he was accused of voluntary manslaughter. And the gay community was up in arms, literally. On June 22nd, McDonald's introduces the Happy Meal, but there was no toy as seen from the commercials on TV, and the children were not happy about that. On July 2nd, the Susan B. Anthony dollar is introduced in the United States. On July 11th, NASA's first orbiting space station, Skylab, begins its return to Earth after being in orbit for 6 years and 2 months. On July 12th, a disco demolition night publicity stunt goes awry at Comiskey Park, forcing the Chicago White Sox to forfeit their game against the Detroit Tigers. This radio station put this on, for people who hated disco. And unfortunately, as you see, it got totally out of hand. It became a riot, and people were down on the field burning these disco CDs. On July 19th, the Sandinista National Liberation Front concludes a successful revolutionary campaign against the U.S.-backed Somoza dictatorship, and the Sandinistas assume power in Nicaragua. On August 10th, Michael Jackson releases his first breakthrough album, Off the Wall, and it sells 7 million copies in the United States alone, making it 7 times a platinum album, which is 1 million for platinum. On September 16th, the Sugar Hill Gang release Rapper's Delight. This is the first rap single song to become a top 40 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. So this is where it all started with the rappers. Their first hit. On September 23rd, the largest anti-nuclear demonstration to date is held in New York City, and 200,000 people attended. Thanks to 3 Mile Island, people were now afraid of nuclear power. On October 1st through the 6th, Pope John Paul II visits 6 cities in the United States. On October 17th, President Jimmy Carter signs a law establishing the Department of Education. On November 1st, Iranian Ayatollah Khomeini urges his people to demonstrate on November 4th and to expand attacks on the United States and Israeli interest. On November 3rd, in Greensboro, North Carolina, 5 members of the Communist Workers' Party are shot to death and 7 are wounded by a group of Klansmen and neo-Nazis during a Death to the Klan rally. On November 4th, 3,000 Iranian radicals, mostly students, invade the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and take 90 American hostages. They demand that the United States send the former Shah of Iran back to stand trial. This was the beginning of a nightmare for America. On November 7th, U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy announces that he will challenge President Jimmy Carter for the 1980 Democratic presidential nomination. On November 9th, a nuclear false alarm. The NORAD computers and the alternate National Military Command Center in Fort Ritchie, Maryland, detected supposed massive Soviet nuclear strike. So their radars and their computers said, "We are being attacked by the Russians with a massive attack." After reviewing the raw data from satellites and checking the early warning radars, they realized it was a false alarm and the alert was canceled. We could have gone to war. On November 12th, in response to the hostage situation in Tehran, President Jimmy Carter orders a halt to all oil imports into the United States from Iran. On November 17th, the Iranian leader Khomeini orders the release of 13 female and African American hostages being held at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. On November 21st, after a false radio reports from the Ayatollah Khomeini that the Americans had occupied the Grand Mosque in Mecca, the United States Embassy in Islamabad, Pakistan, is attacked by a mob and set afire, killing 4. On December 3rd, 11 fans are killed during a stampede for seats before a The Who concert at the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hard to believe that this could happen in America. 11 people killed, just rushing for seats. On December 6th, the world premiere for Star Trek: The Motion Picture is held at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., of all places. On December 21st, Chrysler receives a government loan guarantee upon the request of CEO Lee Iacocca. So, who was born in 1979? I picked out a few that I think most of us will know. Stormy Daniels. She's certainly been in the news the last 2 or 3 years. We all know who she is. The singer Norah Jones. The singer Adam Levine, who's the lead singer for the group Maroon 5. The actor Chris Pratt. The actor and comedian Kevin Hart. I see him on TV doing commercials all the time now. The actor Jason Momoa. The singer Pink. And I found this and had to put him up. Jawed Karman. This is the co-founder of YouTube. If it wasn't for this guy, you wouldn't be watching this YouTube. You wouldn't be watching any YouTubes. So what was introduced in 1979? And I can assure you, none of these silly looking devices. I just thought they were funny and I put them up here. So this is what came out in 1979. The Black & Decker Dustbuster. I've got one of these. McDonald's introduced the Happy Meal that year, much to the delight of children. General Mills introduced Honey Nut Cheerios. The Sony Walkman. This had a cassette tape in it, and you could walk around with this on your hip or in your pockets and listen to music. Very, very popular device. A little lady by the name of Strawberry Shortcake. My daughter was 3 years old in 1979, so I was very familiar with Strawberry Shortcake. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, was established that year. VisiCalc, this was the first spreadsheet developed to run on personal computers. I used to demonstrate this on the Apple II Plus and the Apple IIe computer when I worked for Apple. And we introduced the Apple II Plus that year. And Atari introduced their 8-bit computer, the Atari 800. And the Maglite flashlight was first introduced. I've got one of these in my glove compartment and in the table beside my bed. What were the highest grossing movies in 1979? Which movies made the most money? Number 1, Kramer vs. Kramer, starring Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep. Second biggest money maker, The Amityville Horror. Coming in at number 3, Rocky II, Sylvester Stallone. Number 4 big money maker, Star Trek, the motion picture. And these faces were very familiar because these were the actors that were on the TV show. So we all knew them very well. And the 5th biggest moneymaker, Apocalypse Now, starring Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, and Martin Sheen. shown here. Robert Duvall here. He had a great line, quote, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." What were the most popular TV shows way back in 1979? Number 1, 60 Minutes on Sunday. I always used to joke, you do not want to see a 60 Minutes crew pull up in your driveway. Number 2, Three's Company. Number 3, That's Incredible. This was a reality show where they went and found people that were amazing or doing interesting things. Number 4, Alice. These are waitresses in Mel's Diner. And the 5th biggest moneymaker, MASH. Do you remember what MASH stands for? It stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. What were the top songs of 1979 according to Billboard? Number 1, My Sharona by The Knack. Number 2, Bad Girls by Donna Summer. Number 3, Les Freaks by Chic. Number 4, Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart. And coming in at number 5, Reunited by Peaches and Herb. The Academy Award for Best Actor went to Jon Voight in the movie Coming Home. The Academy Award for Best Actress went to Jane Fonda in Coming Home. And the Academy Award for Best Picture went to, I'll give you a hint, it wasn't Coming Home. It was The Deer Hunter, starring Robert De Niro, Meryl Streep. So, who were the most popular singers in 1979? This is based upon radio play, record, CD sales, jukebox plays. Number 1, Donna Summer. Number 2, the Bee Gees. Number 3, Blondie. Number 4, The Knack. Number 5, Rod Stewart. The average man's salary in 1979 was $6,530. Let me convert that into our dollars today. That would have been $29,587 in 2025 dollars. How does that stack up with the average actual salary today? Well, it's pretty lousy. $61,900 is the actual average salary in America today. So that would have been a lousy salary. The cost of a new car was $6,848. Let's change that to our dollars. That is a $31,000 car in today's dollars. what is the actual cost of an average car in America? Just looked this up an hour ago, and it is $48,400. So those were cheap cars. The cost of a new home was $62,750. In today's dollars, that is a $284,000 home. So what is the real cost today? $323,490 is the average actual cost of building a home in America right now. A gallon of gas cost 86 cents back then in '79. Converting that to our dollars, that is $3.90. That's expensive gas. I looked this up today, and I can buy gas for $2.94 at my local Costco. So thanks for watching, and I hope you found it interesting, and be well.